Welcome to this session, which will discuss blockchain technologies applied to record keeping in order to provide a single version of the truth. I'm Dr. Pat Franks, a professor in the iSchool at SJSU and the coordinator of the Master of Archives and Records Administration, MARA, program. This presentation will cover three topics: an introduction to blockchain, blockchain technology and terms, and applications for record keeping. So who is behind blockchain? You may have heard of Satoshi Nakamoto, who began working on the Bitcoin concept in 2007. Nakamoto developed Bitcoin and devised the first blockchain database. Keep that word in mind, we're talking about a database. While Nakamoto is on record as living in Japan, it's speculated that Nakamoto is a collective pseudonym for more than one person. And what is it? Well, while definitions abound, some individuals still have no clue. However, the definition provided by Don and Alex Capscott gives us a basic understanding of the term, which describes this incorruptible digital ledger of economic transactions that can be programmed to record not just financial transactions, but virtually everything of value. This is a simple version of blockchain as far as Bitcoin technology is concerned. A blockchain starts with a genesis block. It contains data about the transaction, the date, time, identity, and transaction details, along with a hash, which is a unique digital signature generated cryptographically of the data. If the block is not the genesis block, the first block, it will also contain a hash of the previous block or blocks. There is no centralized oversight of the transactions recorded. The system is decentralized, so everyone owns the ledger. And remember, the ledger is the record of transactions. Miners or computers on the network begin to solve the puzzle to verify the transaction. The first one to do so sends a copy to each node on the network for verification. If 51% or more of the nodes agree, the block is verified and added to, or even begins, the blockchain. A chain is a collection of blocks that are linked together, referencing hashes from the previous block. Think of a hash as the mathematical glue that holds the blockchain together and creates trust. Now, if you're thinking about just becoming a blockchain or crypto miner, think again. Anyone can run a node. All you have to do is download the Bitcoin software, which is free, and leave a port open. However, it takes a lot of computing space, and there is a cost for the utility. An example is right here in my home state of New York. Plattsburgh decided to allow crypto mining and had operations even from as far away as Puerto Rico. They had very low rates as far as utilities because they had a contract with a hydropower plant. However, they went over their contract for use of power in December of 2017 and January of 2018, and suddenly the citizens saw their utility bills soar $300 a month. They put a ban on crypto mining for now. But at the same time, others are getting into the mining complex idea. In Australia, we see that a coal plant is being diverted into becoming an applications complex. However, I wonder if you can guess who mines the most Bitcoins right now. It's a country often in the news, China. They mine 60% of all new Bitcoins. We in the U.S. mine only about 3%. we're at an export disadvantage even here. This is what a cryptocurrency mine really looks like, though. Just a lot of servers, a lot of computers doing work. And you may have heard a lot about Bitcoin, but there are other types of cryptocurrency as well. And one you're going to hear quite a bit about is Ethereum, if you haven't already. The blockchain itself has 4 principles that you'll hear me talk about quite a bit. It's distributed, it's public, and public means that anyone on the blockchain can see the transactions, anyone on the network. It doesn't mean, though, that you can see who is on the network, you just see the transactions. It's time-stamped. JSON times of all the transactions are recorded in plain view for everyone in the network to see. And it's persistent. This means because all of the nodes in the network have a copy of the transactions, your blockchain is not going to catch fire. It's not going to be damaged by water, and it can't be misplaced. You'll have that record of those transactions. So what are the benefits of blockchain technology? Well, blockchain removes or disintermediates the middleman from business transactions, and I've got a business background. We've been trying to do that forever. You know, more people involved, the higher the cost. So if you can remove the middleman, you can reduce the cost. And you also, in theory, will be able to improve the value of existing products and services and interactions. Now, we hear a lot about the public blockchain and Bitcoin. I mentioned Ethereum, which is another public blockchain. There are 2 other types of blockchain platforms as well. Ethereum first is a decentralized platform, and it runs smart contracts, applications that are programmed without any possibility of downtime, censorship, fraud, or third-party interference. The apps run on the blockchain, which was custom built. That enables developers of the apps to create markets, store registries of debts or promises, move funds in accordance with instructions given long ago. For example, wills, or even futures contracts. The cryptocurrency for Ethereum is called Ether, and it can be housed in an Ethereum wallet, which not only holds the Ether and other crypto assets built on Ethereum, but it can also be used to write, deploy, and use smart contracts. The second type of platform is private. IBM is very interested in business applications. Developers can solve business problems by developing apps on the IBM blockchain platform. IBM is in the business of providing service. They have starter services where experts will help anyone to design a blockchain and take it to pilot. They also have acceleration services if you want to take that pilot and then move it into production. And they have innovation services where organizations can leverage the IBM ecosystem and establish capabilities to design new business value and add technologies like artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. You see the word Hyperledger there. Hyperledger is open source, and it's a foundation that IBM belongs to. And what it does is provide a framework for blockchain that provides modules that allow functionality such as permission networks, where you can define membership and access rights, or confidential transactions, where transactions can be visible only to the select parties with the correct encryption keys. The third type of platform is a consortium. This one you haven't heard about probably too much, but R3 is an enterprise software firm that works with a network of over 200 financial institutions, regulators, trade associations, professional service firms, technology companies, and they developed Corda. It's a blockchain platform, again, for business. But in this case, it's used for a consortium. It's comprised of a limited number of nodes on a partially decentralized blockchain. And it operates like the public blockchain on a consensus basis, where more than half of the nodes or more than one half of the participants must agree that a transaction can be verified. This Corda operates actually worldwide. They've got locations or hubs in New York, London, and Singapore, so it's a fairly large operation. Now, remember I said Ethereum, you could have a wallet? I tried that. I went to the site and I clicked on download on my Mac so that I could get my Ethereum wallet, and then I was presented with this little warning that you see down at the right here, a security warning, where in very plain language I was told I'm responsible for my own security, and if my machine is compromised, I'm going to lose all my Ether, all my cryptocurrency. And I'm responsible for my own actions. If I mess anything up, it's my problem. And then I'm also responsible for my own karma if I am a jerk. I'm going to reap the benefits of doing that. You can understand why I've then highlighted, never mind, that was exactly what I decided to do. It would take a little more thinking before I would get involved there, I think. So now, let's take a look at how blockchain can improve trust in industries where information is transferred. This is where blockchain is going to change the world. You can see that it can be used in accounting for auditing and fraud prevention, or in education to manage assessments, credentials, transcripts. So that would be good for us in our field. Aerospace, location of parts and chain of custody. Should there be a problem with a part, you can quickly tell where that part came from and also who else is using that part to eliminate any chance of problems somewhere else. Finance, we're very familiar with that, remitting and currency exchange. Real estate, though, deed transfers. If you ever purchased a home, obtained a mortgage, you know how many people are involved in that and how much paperwork that can be streamlined with blockchain when you're buying and selling property. Healthcare, for medical devices, but also health information interoperability. When there was a hurricane that devastated New Orleans, paper was destroyed, and so they started putting everything in electronic digital format. Well, the next hurricane came around. It didn't work anyway because people had to get that information by fax, and it was still siloed. So I can just imagine the wonderful world if we can actually have our healthcare information available very quickly and in its entirety. You also see energy there, so smart metering, centralized energy grid. Now, those are all concepts, theories, right? Ideas, but we need someone to pull them off. So there are a lot of companies getting into this space as well. In San Francisco, Chain is developing software tools for developers to create apps for applications such as loyalty points. I lose my loyalty points all the time. We have so many different cards and so many different ways to be able to use those points. In London, a startup, Everledger, is using technology to fingerprint the large diamonds and track them right from the mine to the wearer's finger. You want to know where they came from, where they've been. In Texas, there's a startup, Factum, that's building a land title registry in Honduras so that citizens can defend their property rights in court. And in Zurich, Chen is using blockchain to enable non-billionaires to co-own and trade valuable goods such as art and jewelry. And I think I'm a non-billionaire, so that would be something I might be interested in should I have art or jewelry. Now, I mentioned smart contracts before. And this is the basis for a smart contract. It's code. Take a look on the left side of the screen and you'll see code written in Ethereum Solidity. It's a program language that Ethereum has produced. And all it's showing you there are variables, kind of like a database, where you would put the name of the publisher, the name of the advertiser. I think this one is for payment for clicks on ads on the website. Down at the bottom, you see unit payments, and they're in WEI, W-E-I. That's the smallest denomination for Ether, for Ethereum's cryptocurrency. So that's how this one contract would be negotiated. Smart contracts are self-executing. Once they're started, they just keep going, but they're all based on code that is written. The transactions, when they're completed, are traceable, transparent, and irreversible. What's interesting to me is how states in the United States now are scrambling to keep up with the technology in terms of regulations. In Vermont, there was a House bill approved in June 2016 that states that blockchain-based records are admissible as evidence in court. And there was a law enacted in 2017 in Arizona that acknowledges the legality of signatures in contracts that are secured on blockchains. So those are all digital. It's not someone signing it. It's a digital version, an agreement, all through code that you see at the left. All right, so smart contracts may be immutable, that's what I keep saying, but they're not infallible. Errors can be made. And so we might even be looking at audits of smart contracts. The announcement at the left there says the DAO was attacked, code issue leads to $60 million Ether theft. Well, what that is there is a distributed organization. It's an autonomous organization. And it just means that the company is operating automatically without interference from human beings, all through code. And they had a lot of money in terms of Ether. People on the code, on the network, the nodes, one of the nodes figured out what they could do is divert some money from this common pool into one leg of the pool. They were able to find a way to move it so that they were the only ones who had access to it. So in theory, the entire group lost $60 million, US dollars, worth of Ethers. And that triggered an investigation by the Security and Exchange Commission here in the United States. The Security and Exchange Commission looked into the facts and found that the people who lost the money, the Ether, were going to be reimbursed. So they were made good. There was no charge against anyone, but it caused the SEC to look at the 1934 law of the Securities and Exchange Act and reiterate that the fundamental principles that were included in that 1934 Act are still applicable to this new paradigm, to blockchain technology. And their statement was that the automation of certain functions through this technology, smart contracts, or computer code, does not remove conduct from the purview of the U.S. federal security law. This report also serves to stress the obligation to comply with the registration of provisions of the federal securities law with respect to products and platforms involving emerging tech and new investor interfaces. What they're basically saying there is cryptocurrency is a security and you better register it if you're doing business here in the United States. Our SEC is going to oversee that. So now let's take a look at some applications. The applications have to do with gaming, land registries, homeless services, academic records, and corporate records. The first is MIT, their foray, their pilot with blockchain technology for diplomas. They were for students on the bachelor's and the master's level. And what I'm showing you here on the right is the student experience. Students received email. They were told to log in if they wanted to participate. They signed in through their MIT identity system and went through the process, and once issued, the students received their diplomas by email as an attachment, which doesn't sound like a big deal. But in the middle, what it shows is the blockchain step that was taken all along the route until that transcript was verified. And on the right-hand side, you see the transcript as shown on the student's iPhone. MIT has a copy of that. The students have a copy of that. The students, in theory, can show an iPhone to someone, as you do when you're boarding a plane now and you show your boarding pass, and they should be accepted as the transcript without going through that long process of trying to have your transcript sent. MIT also provides a verification site. You can see that in the middle column here at the bottom, where you can look up the diploma and check it out compared to the hash on the blockchain. Another pilot is in Austin, where blockchain is used to improve homeless services. The hope is that paper records, and you see this poor little thing there, certainly wouldn't have paper records like birth certificate with them, right? But the idea is that these paper records could be managed on a blockchain, and who would have access to it? Most likely not the homeless person, but the homeless person's representative from the social services. And they would be able to look at each person's identity through a mobile device and verify that person from out in the field as opposed to dragging them into the main office for processing. Vital records on the blockchain could be built up over time so that providers would know what kind of services, healthcare services the person received. So it has just tremendous opportunities there for dealing with the homeless. India is looking at it for land registries. There's a proof of concept there as well, where key benefits are going to be an immutable history of the records, permanently linked to the system, that can be seen by any party at any time. So the benefits to the buyers and the sellers would be that you have that single source of truth. The buyer is assured the land being bought is the correct plot. The seller is the right owner. And this should reduce potential for disputes as well as costs and time involved for any of these transactions. Delaware. I don't know if you knew that 2/3 of Fortune 500 companies are incorporated in Delaware. And so they want to be very friendly to those corporations, and in 2016 announced a blockchain initiative. In 2017, the law took effect. And what that means is that corporations can keep their records on the blockchain, including the names of people who are shareholders. And who is quoted there is someone from a law firm. Law firms are very interested in blockchain. This person said, think about what a corporation is. A corporation is its records. Ultimately, just about every corporate document and transaction could be created on the blockchain. And then our last example is kind of a fun one. Have you heard of CryptoKitties? CryptoKitties was announced, I think it was like in December, and within a month, they had over $1 million spent on people buying CryptoKitties. These are collectibles. And this was on the Ethereum blockchain as well. So, in record-keeping terms, because I like to think about what does this mean for somebody in charge of governing the records for organizations. So I kind of did a crosswalk between terms I'm hearing and terms I know from the record-keeping world. Immutable ledger translates to a record that has integrity. It's complete and it's unaltered. It's used as legal evidence on the blockchain. You see some states are saying it can be done. Well, that translates to reliability. The contents of the record has to be trusted as full and accurate. Multiple copies are on the blockchain because everybody on that blockchain network, all those nodes, have copies. Well, in the records management world, Stanford came up with an idea of Loxis. Lots of copies keep stuff safe, and so that's the idea. Multiple backups on the blockchain technology are not necessary, but they really are there because, remember, everybody on the network has a copy. So in terms of the records world where we're looking at, we need backups, and is there a backup of the backup, and can we back up outside of our area in case a natural disaster hits? So we don't want our backup to be hit by the same natural disaster. Well, in the world of blockchain technology, those networks can be distributed all over the world. And then chain of custody is established, and chain of custody is a term we're very familiar with in the records management world. It means we need to know everybody who's touched that record and what they did with it, and that will happen if it's recorded on the blockchain. So I have some tips for records and information managers that if you are working in this field, you really need to know if anybody is using it within your organization. And you have to understand how, what are the access points and who's doing what on it. I talked about miners on that network, but there are others on that network too, like oracles, for example, who can run out and grab information from off-chain and bring it back into the chain. So there are other things happening. Determine where the documents live off the chain. I'm saying we've got a record of transactions. I'm not saying we have a copy of everything, right? What we have a record of is that transaction that occurred, but not everything that was in it. Think about that transcript from MIT, and MIT has a copy, students have a copy, but blockchain has a copy of the transactions. We check that this is true. Include the ledger and retention schedule, map the location of your off-chain records. Think about privacy. I think you had a session on that. How are these records then going to be treated if you have somebody, for example, say, I have the right to erase you've got to erase my name from that blockchain. How do you do that if it's immutable? All right, there's a way that those things can be handled by getting rid of the whole encryption key, but do we want to do that? Is that enough? Update policies and procedures and determine how you would handle things like freedom of information and e-discovery. So my final caution to all of you is blockchain is not always the best choice. If you're seeking trust and immutability, blockchain solution may be your best choice. But if you require confidentiality and performance, a database may be all that you need. And some resources for you. I use the first one. It's terrific. Blockchain from IBM is free. And Blockchain and the Law is something I'm going to be reading next. Thank you very much.